To all the people out there who work as scarers in haunted houses, what was your best scare reaction? Story 1. Maybe 5 to 6 years ago, I worked at an amusement park that converts much of the park into multiple haunted houses. I worked in the area that was a haunted butcher shop. I was in a room that was supposed to be where everything got gutted, and the wall had this thick fake gore with a person-shaped outline. I wore a suit that had the same fake gore on the front. In the dark light, I was practically invisible. One girl was on her phone and totally not paying attention, but her friends saw right through my camouflage and motioned for me to hop in line behind their friend. I followed them for a little ways, and finally this chick looks up from her phone and starts to turn to talk to her friend, not realizing that I was mere inches behind her. She turns and we're close enough that I can see her pupils as they widen. She jumped probably a foot in the air and sprinted through the rest of the maze. Her friends couldn't stop laughing on the way out. Story 2. The coolest room I ever worked in was very innocent seeming at first. It was the last room in a fairy tale themed house. It looked like the inside of a little storybook cottage. Cutesy music was playing. There was a fake window with a meadow painted outside it. On a wall was a chalkboard and pieces of chalk available. The chalkboard was split down the middle by a line said, "Were you scared?" at the top, and gave you the option to mark yes or no on one side of the line. That's where I came in. The chalkboard was actually a drop panel, essentially a hidden window that loudly slams open to reveal a cast member on the other side. I was painted up like a horrible, gory Snow White. When I dropped the panel, it also triggered all the lights in the room to go out except for black lights, which revealed hidden evil drawings all over the walls, and an air cannon would blast people from behind, making them feel like something was touching them. It was just the best room because people felt safe. They finally let their guard down when they saw this cheerful space. And when they went to put a mark on the chalkboard, often bragging to their friends, "That wasn't scary," that's when bang, black. Out, satanic scrawlings everywhere, air cannons smacking their heads, and evil Snow White was cackling in their faces, all in the span of 1 second. They always ran out shrieking bloody takedown. Never trust the last room. Answer. My wife and I host our own haunted house, mostly the front entrance. However, we go all out. Projections, UV lights, lots of decorations. The first year we bought our house, we didn't realize it was 100 kids minimum, rain or shine. The owners before us moved down the street and don't really do much, so I'm sure we came out of nowhere with our setup. My wife was dressed as a witch with UV reactive green makeup on her face, with a large witch hat. It was totally accidental, but when asked truck or treat, some clever kids chose trick. My wife figured out that if she looked up when straight at the kids, the UV light would light up his makeup super bright, since the large black brim of her hat was blocking the UV light above her. That would give some quite a shock, instantly asking how she did that. It running and laughing. I was dressed as the Grim Reaper. The custom was excellent and hiding me, with lots of blackout bits and bones on the gloves and face, etc. At the start of the night, we would start out with me opening the door and essentially filling the entire doorway. Then I would back up slowly after my wife triggers the smoke machine. Then my wife would pull her bit. Kids generally loved it, and as time went by, the older kids were out and I'd up my scare game. Our doorbell rang, and this girl about 10-12 in a full ballerina getup was at the door. I slowly opened the door while staying hidden behind it, and I jumped out from behind. She screamed bloody takedown, turned and ran full steam off our property and down the street. Her mom was on the sidewalk, laughing herself, breathless. Wheezing, she had to call her daughter back. Again, barely able to catch her breath, she was laughing so hard. She made her take her picture with us, and Todd is, we were. They're best she's ever seen. Full of compliments, lol. Story 3. I worked at a haunted house that used to be a slaughterhouse that many believed was actually haunted. I worked in a room that was a pitch-black, winding corridor with many secret doors, so I could get 4 scares on a group by myself. At the end, we have moving floors, plywood with balls under them, that are very loud when you step on them and shift slightly, making most people look down even though it's pitch black. My favorite scare would be to sit at the end of the hallway, wait to hear them touch the first moving floor. Audio cues were important. Then click on my flashlight, point it up at my face. I wore a 3-headed clown mask and just fudge charge at them. So you have a creepy-looking clown guy charging at you. The moving floor is making the footsteps into really loud bangs, and you can't go anywhere since your hands are on the walls, guiding you through the darkness, and your group is behind you blocking your escape. The dread you see on some of these tough guy group leaders is hilarious. I get as close as I can, shut the light off, and just silently walk backwards and disappear through another door. The amount of people that pissed themselves on that scare was astounding. I had only even made 2 people piss before I thought of doing that. Then I got my number to 7 in the last couple weeks of the season. Story 4. At the local state park camping area, my family would go camping every year for Halloween. Everyone decorated their campsites and the kids went around trick-or-treating. One year, I took a large pumpkin and carved it, hollowing it out through the bottom. I covered my hair in an orange bag and painted my face the same color as the inside of the pumpkin. I put the pumpkin on my head and I dressed in oversized clothes, stuffing them with leaves, and put on a pair of red gloves that I attached fake claws to. Everything was topped off with a nice black cloak, and then I taped a pair of monster hand gloves to my wrists to hide my actual hands and make me look like I was essentially a scarecrow and a real, though very dull, sword. I then took my place in the field with the other decorations, but I made sure I was reasonably close to the edge where people would walk by. My first one was the best. A family walks up with 2 kids. The kids are telling the mom that I am real. The mom is telling the kids I am not real, and she decides to show them by coming up and touching me. She comes close and looks back at the kids saying, "See, it's not real." At which point I raise the sword in my left hand, reach for her raised hand with my right as I step forward, and the kids loose their chute. She turns around and sees me and tries to walk back, but just falls on her jerk, screaming. The kids run. The dad was doubled over in laughter, literally in tears. Once the mom got herself under control, I offered her a hand and help her up. The kids, who had stopped about 15 feet away, are yelling, "We told you so!" And the mom is fake hitting me as she half laughs and curses at me. The dad could still hardly breathe. The best part, though, was the fact that I was 14, and that night I also unknowingly frightened a little girl of 11 who, around 15 years later, I would marry. Edit, typos, and thanks for the silver. Answer: I am informed by my wife that I had to be closer to 15 or 16 due to our age difference. She was around 11 or 10. We actually discovered this when we were in line for a haunted house that we were going to go to with some of her friends from work. We didn't actually go through the haunted house, she was too scared, and we had to exit through the little antechamber where you meet the guide. Story 5. All volunteer haunted house, and one year we have like 10 teen guys show up dressed as the Grim Reaper. Okay, well, the organizers decide to put them all together in a corridor and make people walk a gauntlet through menacing scythes. This one young woman is really freaked out as she edges through the rooms, senses on high alert, visibly shaking. As a living mannequin, I decide to just say a quiet good evening, which sends her scrambling away from me into the Reaper's corridor. They all converge eagerly, scythes flashing, and she shrieks and drops like her strings got cut. She's passed out. Cold. All the Grim Reapers are standing over her uncertainly, shocked. Then from one skull comes a wavering, really worried, "Oh, shoot. We eliminate her." Story 6. Worked at a haunted house when I was younger as a youth job. It was a lot of fun. I had to sit in this narrow hallway in a doll costume and sit perfectly still. Then, when people passed me, I would suddenly move, making it look like I was trying to grab them, and do my best creepy voice saying stuff like, "Come play with me," or "Stay with me forever." I got some great reactions, though some stand out more in my memory. The dude that tried to scooch by the opposed wall while muttering, "Nope, nope, no PE, nope." And when I reached for him, he did this weird jump thing, the kind you see cats doing. In videos while yelling, "Fudge no Annabelle," looking meanie. Then there was this group of dude bro looking guys that were 100% sure I was a human-sized doll, spending the whole walk down the hallway saying stuff like, "That shoot isn't that scary, it doesn't even look very lifelike." Weren't they surprised? God being a scarer was fun. 1010 would do again. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Answer. My Ren Fair garb is the habit of a Benedictine monk. All black, deep cowl. Lots of people assume impassing or a Nazgul or something. The cloth of the cowl is thin enough that you can see through it pretty clearly as long as it's right against your face. The fun part is that I can stand very still for extended periods. Not really prone to fidgeting. I've had multiple people assume I was a prop while I wait for my wife to use the bathroom. One year I used it to give out candy at Halloween. Just stood there making very slow, very repetitive movements like a cheap lawn decoration. Story 7. I actually knew a couple of the actors in a Fright Night event at a farm about an hour away, and when I entered the first of like 12 scares, I tried to comfort my older brother by saying, "It's okay," brother's name, and putting my hands on his shoulders. One of the actors heard me say this, unfortunately for my brother, and followed us for the entire scare, screeching his name at every turn. Even I was shoot myself. He didn't partake in any of the other scares, needless to say. Answer. I live in a small town and our haunted house is volunteer-run. The actors always use people's first names. Makes it so much worse. I got so scared one year that I took off running and slammed my head against a fire extinguisher. Lights went on so they could make sure I didn't have a head wound. LOL. The worst experience, though. I went into one of the touch houses in a neighboring city. Wasn't too bad until the very end. Just before the exit, an actor snatched my glasses and licked them. Slobbered all over the instrument I used to fudge see. I went from scared to pretty darn disgusted at that point. I used my backup glasses for a few days after that. Story 8. Not a scarer, but I have a feeling I, and by proxy, the group I was with, was this person's best scare. Our group was in a dark maze filled with chainsaw maniacs, all dressed in black. After a couple of scares, all the chainsaws went quiet, setting a very uneasy calm. I had been sent to the back of the group because I wasn't fazed by the haunted house section. As we came up on the end of the maze, I heard footsteps behind me. Thinking this was another group, I said, "Hey, we think the exit is this way." Turns out I was wrong. Not about the exit, but the fact that it was another group. It was one of the chainsaw maniacs, and they responded by revving the chainsaw. Cue our entire group and accordioning up on door out of the maze, because the sickos who designed it built it so the door opens in, not out. Answer. I have a pretty similar story. My friends and I had just gone through a haunted maze and were about 20 out of the exit, comparing which parts scared us best when I said that the guys with the chainsaw were the most scary. Right then, one of the scarers, who must have been finishing his break, revved up the chainsaw from behind the nearby tree line and chased me the rest of the way to the parking lot. Story 9. I worked for a rather popular haunted house hayride cornfield. It's made the Travel Channel shows a few times, so my now husband and I were supposed to be dead cowfolk in a Wild West scene. The way it was set up is the PPL walk in through a big opening in the front. There are 2 buildings on either side where 2 actors should set off the scene. After that, the PPL walk around a stable-like fenced-off enclosure which put them in this narrowish corridor where I and my husband were. I was on a barrel, he was lying under the fence. From there, the area would open up just a little with a blacksmith. The dude was actually a blacksmith. He'd spend the night making cool shoot, and we'd warm up by the fire while we waited for groups. There was an emergency exit that was part of the scenery, the firing thing. I can't remember what it's called, LOL, sorry. And then the entrance to the mine shaft. The entire walk through was maybe 40 ft. Oh, and it was always really dark. Our main source of light was the fire from the blacksmith and nearby hayride. Other than that, we had a few very dimly lit light bulbs. So one night, we were doing our thing, scaring people and whatnot, when this kid comes booking it through the scene. He's all alone and just fudge terrified. I mentioned the emergency exit BC if someone ever said, "I can't do this, I want out." We'd have to exit character, the only time we were allowed to, and adult worker them out. So this kid is hauling jerk, IDK if he got separated from his group and was trying to find them, or if he said fudge this and wanted to just hurry out or what. But he gave us about a second to try to scare him as he flashed past us. Well, the ground was uneven and I think a little damp, and he slipped and fell and slid to a stop against a barrel. Right by the exit door. My husband and I are like, "Oh, shoot." We walk over to him and he's lying on the ground, panting hard, staring up at us with sheer terror in his eyes. I'm like, "For real, dude, not playing. Are you okay?" And he quickly nods, eyes still bugging out and looking between us. I'm like, "You sure? Do you need to leave?" He takes a second, looks at us again, and shakes his head. I look at my husband and then back at this kid and scream, "Then get up and get the hell out. Get out. Get out. Get out." That kid jumped up like he had rockets strapped to his back and fudge. Hauled jerk into the mine shaft, leaving me and my husband rolling. Good times. Answer. For the past 4 to 5 years, my dad, brother, and I have gone to a new haunted house somewhere within a couple hours of our hometown. We love all things spooky. It was my brother's first year, and we went to a scream park. One of the haunts was like this backwoods hillbilly cannibal scene, and they looved my brother. Sidebar. He was 11, 12, but he's very small for his age, so people think he's a lot younger. One of the scarers asked my brother if he wanted to stay and have dinner, and he calmly just said no thank you. She kept on and started getting louder and louder and angrier sounding with every sentence. Finally, she yelled to the other scarers that she's got a little chicken nugget and wants to share. He took off running and left my dad and I trying not to pee our pants laughing. He ran so far he caught up with the family that was in front of us and started walking with them. Funniest thing I've ever seen. Story 10. Not a scarer, but I did work at a theme park with a well-known Halloween event. As such, I got very discounted tickets for it and took my scaredy cat pals to see all the mazes. I have so much respect for scare actors for not breaking character, despite Friend A turning the corner to see a creepy Victorian-era lady and screaming, "No, no, thank you for your service," at the top of her lungs. Friend B somehow missing every jump scare that the pig mask-wearing man tried to pull on her because she was always conveniently looking another way. Both of them being cornered in a tunnel by infected guys in hazmat suits, and Friend A just kept yelling through genuinely terrified tears for them to please don't infect us. We don't have health insurance. Friend C making kissy duck faces at every actor that tried to scare him, and at one point when he got cornered by 3 scary ladies, he whooped loudly and hollered, "Ooh, baby, it's a triple." In the words of Friend A, thank you, scare actors. Thank you for your service. Story 11. Worked at a haunted attraction for several seasons. My first year, I was on the hayride portion of the top haunted attraction in America, and I was given the role of a woman begging for her life before getting beheaded. I had to scream and beg for someone to help me, and then ultimately my head would get chopped off. One night, during one of these performances, I accidentally dialed my mom's work phone and ended up leaving a voicemail of me screaming along with my usual, "Please help me. He's going to eliminate me." Fast forward to the next morning, Mom goes into work and listens to her voicemails on speakerphone as she normally does. Then my voicemail from 2 a.m. starts screaming at her. She and all her co-workers freaked out, and she had to call me to make sure I was still alive. My second favorite was when I was camouflaged as Moss inside a haunted houseboat scene. I'd hide partially in the darkness and scare people when they were within arm's length. I personally loved picking on the tough guys, usually the biggest screamers, so I see a very large man coming my way. Scare the bejesus out of him, and he screamed like a little girl, "Oh, hell, no," and he took off almost, knocking down other patrons to run out of the haunted house. Story 12. I volunteer as a wall of spooky living mirrors in a little family-friendly haunted house for a couple of nights every Halloween season. Basically, I poke my hands and a plastic skull through panels of stretchy silver fabric while kids are walking by. The best are the kids who are brave enough to announce that they know it's not real. It's just someone behind the wall, and to try to grab me through the fabric, but not fast enough to get their hands away before I grab back. Turns out that even if you're feeling brave, you still screech when a mirror grabs your fingers and tugs. Story 13. Had a dude once come through, jumped a bloody mile in the air when I scared him. He just stopped with this far-off look and said, "I just shoot myself." I stayed in character till the smell hit me. I broke and asked if he wanted an adult worker. Dude seemed to snap out of it and said, "Nah." I pinched the rest back, and off he marched. Edit. What an awesome way to wake up. Thanks for all the updoots and the gold. Much scary love to you all. Story 14. Not a haunted house, but a zombie run. I was the last zombie before you could escape. I'm a 4F11. I look pretty weak and I wear glasses, which I had fixed with tape as part of my costume. I was supposed to have been a medic before I became a zombie. Despite how I look, I have a very loud voice, am good at screaming, and I'm a good runner. My job was to mill about near the end of the course and catch and tag as infected anyone I felt like. I used to approach or look distracted as people crept towards me. Not all zombies attacked, so people weren't sure how to deal with me. Plus, there were some who had acquired zombie repellent and were quite confident. Spoiler, zombie repellent doesn't work. I'd wait until they had just passed me before unleashing an unholy scream and sprinting after them. I caught quite a few, but the best reactions were a fully grown man who cried actual tears and asked for his mum, and a girl who pissed herself, then threw her water bottle at me. It was a lot of fun, and all the screaming was quite a good core workout. My abs were agony for days after. Story 15. I did a bit of time as a scarer when I was 15, and a decade later, it's still my favorite job I've had, despite it being a fully costumed 6 hours in near darkness with no break. A good 20 of the time, I had punters fully convinced I was animatronic, and the moment where you moved suddenly, times just with them shoot-talking, was absolutely the best. In particular, I remember a guy who was poking stuff and laughing, whilst his girlfriend was kind of scared in general, trying to poke through a cage I was in at me. Reacted like a robot for long enough that he got bored, and just as he went to go, I grabbed. His fingers started waving a knife around like mad, and pressed a foot pedal for some sounds. 6-foot-plus guy ran out back towards the entrance, screaming, and my manager came back in to have a laugh. We actually shut down for 20 minutes or so, because the guys raving in the lobby caused so much fuss. Some thought he was a paid actor, kids started crying, and the line doubled up. Story 16. I got kicked in the nuts real hard by a kid. I was a chainsaw-wielding clown on a haunted hayride. We would hide until the wagon went past us and then run and jump onto the wagon with running saws. One kid didn't like it at all and hoofed me right in the clown balls. I kept a bit more distance after that. Answer. Similar story, but the actual kid. It was at an amusement park Fright Fest, a haunted house hosted by the Boy Scouts no less. We, group of church kids around 12-14, are going through these sheets lined up like a maze with strobe lights going. It is building towards the end and I just